Well, look at time. It is 1 a.m. from 3 to 1. So it wasn't 12 hours. It was 10. 10 hours. 10 hours to resize one video. And, well, I'm not going to upload it now. This is just on the side. But the thing that I noticed, anyway, this is where I started. This is what I started with, that crappy MP4 that's all. I'm going to turn this volume off or something. Okay, it's all letterboxed and messed up, right? Everything's screwy. But there's lots of data in here because the height's 480. So there's enough to do something by 480. There should be. But that doesn't matter, right? It doesn't need to be by 480. I may have overdone it with the data rate, but I converted that to this, which is 640 by 360. Now, of all of the ones that I have now, whoops, I'm going to do something. I got to take my medicine. I have an infection. Okay, here's the 720. Finally came to fruition. And all I did was expanded in the garbage. Open up there. Yeah, okay, so now this here I increased to 480, figuring that this has got a high data rate, but it's a much higher data rate than the original, and it's a higher data rate than my thing here, right? This one's let's see now, 1200. Okay, so 1200 is the amount of image data required to produce the volume image. At least, maybe less. I'm just trying to skip through. The beginning's a bit fuzzy, but now see these bands here? It's smooth. There's no chunkiness. This is just Xvid, no special codecs or anything. It's quite clear at the full screen. In full screen, it's not perfect, but it's clear. It's watchable. You can make out some detail. The close-ups are good. These scenes are very nice. Okay. And this is clear. To me, that's a clear image. Nothing wrong with it at all. And one of the things I noticed in my upload was the keyboard player. I was waiting for it to get there. The keys were all fuzzy. This is not too bad, right? Watch this. That's fine. It's also meant to be fuzzy, right? Like it's there's a hazy kind of thing on the stage. They've done on purpose. So there's that. Now they can see the keyboard there was quite clear. Like sharp corners. I think it goes in there again. Because that was one of the first things I noticed. So things that were sharp, like that's gone now. That's fairly sharp. Not too bad. And to me, there's nothing wrong with this. That's that's a 360p. All right. Well, I know that if I upload a 360p thing, at 1200, with a data rate of 1200, it's going to return me back something with a data rate of about, a third of that. So if I go to 480, it should retain and keep it at about a K, which is what this is. So then now here's the 480 one. Let's go to the same bit. And it's almost as good as the original. It expanded quite well. Playing. Okay, I think I gotta go back a bit. I want to show the lighting, the background lighting. See, now it's starting to become less clear. So there's some loss because of the stretching, but it's still pretty clear and decent. At 480, even clearer here, but the keyboard is looks almost the same as the original. Now, and that's fine. Back shots are fine. And the close-up shots you'll see are pretty much almost the same as the other. They did a good job of converting it to 480. Now the data rate here is quite high, 1500. But for something that's these dimensions, 1500 would be what you would expect for the data at 16:9 aspect ratio. So it should be returning exactly the same thing. This is what I shot back. Of course I didn't. It came back 700 something. It dropped half the detail. And it dropped the detail. See, now that's clear. Nice and clear, sharp lines. Alright, well, so now I gotta prevent it from dropping that detail. So I gotta expand it in another encoding. Now we're gonna do 720p. Another encoding. As you're going to see, actually I should run this with media player since it's a native format. It'll run a little bit faster. Mute. Now, first, let me get the is this what I want to find? Already it's a little bit chunkier than the last one. I expected a little bit more chunkiness. Remember, the best one so far was the 360p version, right? At 1K. Over 2K, more throughput, and so I mean the amount of data is the same, but of course it's being re-encoded and re-encoded and re-encoded, and you lose a little bit every time. And you see now this backup is a part. All of this what used to be nice smooth gradients is now turning into blocks, and it's crumbling, right? So in order to prevent losing it, I lost it by re-encoding. It should still look better than what I got. If I want to sit down and upload this 1 gig file, and maybe the YouTube converter might find some way to fix these problems that didn't exist. It didn't exist in the 360p version. This has now become less clear. Not as nice. This is the worst of the 720 version is the worst. A gig and a whole day waiting for it to finish because that stupid thing that I'm using right now is such a resource pig. This was a test where I put the data rate up really high just to see if that would make a difference. That over 3,000 here, it doesn't make a difference. You'll see it's just as bad. That's just the first song. So I put this one down to 2,000 just to reduce the upload time. That's more. It's not easy to synchronize. This is difficult now for my processor because the amount of now I'm running into video memory problems, right? So it's hard. I can't really display this one on my screen. It's using so much video memory that it won't even play hardly. I might be able to get an image at a certain spot. And after the coffee thing, you'll see that it's no better than the other one. You see, the way these things were is the size doesn't matter, right? The physical dimensions don't matter. Okay, well, it's not too bad. It's still worse than the 360 one, but it's not as bad. And also, this was taken directly from the AVI, right? So the same number of encodings. Now I could do that again. I could take the AVI, bump it up to God knows how many kilobits per second. 3K, 4K. Which the image itself doesn't contain that much information. it contains, here's exactly how much data rate you need precisely, actually less than this. You would need 600K, right? Because that's the original source. But MP4 is really good with certain types of transitions and gradients and things. And so I doubled that data rate in order to get a nice XFIG version of it. Plus, I cut out the, all that extra junk around the corners. So I don't know. It's not worth it to upload it. But then, I waited all day for it to show up. I might as well give it a go. Yeah, I guess I'll let it upload. Unfortunately, it's something I can't do while doing this. The last little video I sent out is not a little video at all. It contains a download and a link. The download is a zip file I made of this, a copy of the page from MIT, which goes through in a very nice linear fashion the use and the architecture of the 386. And each section, wherever you are, okay, you read through it, and then you click next, go to the next, right? It's completely linear. There's no jumping back and forth. So I read up to chapter 4, and that's now where it starts talking about the things that we're going to be talking about. And you just click here, and then it shows you in detail what everything is. Explains in simple language how these things work. Now, of course, you could jump to chapter 9, but you don't have to. You can keep just reading through it. If you're really lost, I guess you could jump ahead and jump back a bit. But there are some, on their page, there are a few links not looking correctly. I fixed those in here. And one of them was no off or something. Loop, none of the loop links work. Is it this one? Somewhere right at the beginning. Yeah, this link didn't work. And that was because this was in small letters. And on Unix, it's got to be case sensitive. But it was actually pretty easy to find all these errors. Sometimes there was HTML and so on. Because every time you hit a bad page, it produces a page that's around 6K big, right? And you'll find that right beside that page, either right beside that page is the one you really wanted, or there's nothing there, but then you make a guess and you find it on their page. And there's not that much, really. There's 13 chapters. No, more, 16 chapters. But I mean, it looks pretty good. Everything is at least mentioned, so you know all the words, right? The debug registers we talked about, and they tell you how they work, and there are lots of diagrams, and there's example code. They tell you what task state is, and what the descriptor table is, and I guess I won't put this in with the rest. These are things that you have to know about when dealing with protected mode. The very first thing you do, I actually did this with that same friend who was my boss eventually at that other company. Earlier on, when we were playing with the toys, I managed to get a 386. It was my brother-in-law. He worked for the government, and they had a lot of computer equipment and stuff, and they used to throw away a lot of things, and he'd pick up this stuff out of the garbage. And one of them was a motherboard for a 386, and he found a chip somewhere, and even had a memory board that it plugged in, and so on. And so armed with exactly one piece of paper that he must have printed from somewhere, written by some Chinese guy, and another little handbook, we managed to get the thing into protected mode. It's difficult. We had to set up. You have to set up a bunch of things because there's no support for anything in protected mode, right? So you have to set it up in such a way that system calls can be routed down into real mode, and then the answer comes back. And you have to make these descriptor tables, and the segment registers are indices into these descriptor tables. And one of the segments we had pointing to a monochrome monitor memory, real mode memory, but mapped into a linear address. At that level of protected mode, you're just in protected mode. There's no virtual machines or anything. It's just flat. You can switch in and out of protected mode. But it's just essentially a flat, from 0 to however much memory you have, thing, and you can run the 32-bit instructions, but there's no, we didn't have a compiler or anything where you could enter in those, instructions. Move into EAX something. The way you did that was you would put up DB66 or something in front of a 16-bit instruction, and that would change it into a 32-bit instruction. But anyway, we played around, we had fun figuring that out, and pretty much stopped there. At least we had an idea and a feel for how the protected mode gets entered, and it's really there, and you can really make the leap, take the leap to warp speed, where now all of a sudden everything is completely open. Of course, you have no operating system. We still had to use DOS and the BIOS in order to do anything. The printing, however, we did without having to switch to real mode, because we had a selector for the monochrome monitor memory. So just write the printing code in assembler to write directly to the, to that segment. Scroll the screen and everything. Make our own printf and so on and so forth. If you wanted to read from the disk, you'd have to write, all the code to do that, because the code that normally does that expects to be in real mode. Anyway, but this thing does a lot more than just I'm just reading this at the same time as I'm thinking about it. It's showing you here sharing data segments among mixed codes. That's what we did. Transferring control. That's what we did to do system calls. And that's what Windows did. Windows was still 16-bit. 3.1 Windows was 16-bit, operating in a virtual 8086 machine. We didn't manage to figure out virtual machine mode. And then there's another type of mode, which I forget what it's called. Maybe it is virtual machine mode, where it's protected mode, but it's a virtual protected mode machine. That is the native code is 32-bit code, along with 32-bit registers and so on. But it's not an 8086. There's no segmenting or no segmentation. And that works through the use of through the invention of a virtual machine, a virtual processor, another like a pretend protected mode. Like from your point of view, you're in protected mode, right? And those things like the descriptor table I just mentioned, you would get your own descriptor table called a local descriptor table, right, that you would set up inside your fake protected mode 32-bit machine. These are 16-bit virtual machines, but WinNT has 32-bit, as you know, virtual machines, and the core operating system is all now been converted to protected mode, and there's a level above the protected mode that user programs run in, and that's all discussed in detail, but not too much detail in this article, and I think it's quite useful to download or just go to the page I mentioned. Alright, okay. I gotta think of something fun anyway to, I don't know, it's hard to think of something, to do something on a really basic level to show it working. But at least we can throw exceptions, and we can walk a stack chain and so on, do things like that, and I'll try to get to something leading towards that direction by the next time. See you.